What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video, we are talking about how to catch them in ultra clear water. You don't have to shy away from that visibility. If you're not used to catching them in clear water, today's video, I'm going to give you some top baits and some tips to help you catch them. Clear water fishing or clear water fisheries often intimidate anglers because those fish are in their habitat. They can see a long ways. People sometimes don't like to downsize or slow down, but clear water fisheries can often overwhelm the angler, and it doesn't have to be that way. So today, I'm going to talk a few tips for you, 3 or 4 tips for you, and some key baits that really help me catch fish when I am given those circumstances. You know, Matt and I, as much traveling as we've got to do the last few years, we have got to fish some of the clearest water in the country. I'm talking last year, I fished a body of water that I could visibly see bottom in 37 feet, no problem. So we must first ask ourselves, what is clear water? Is it 37 feet of visibility? Or are you typically on a stained water fishery or a muddy water fishery, and your fishery goes from 1 foot of visibility to 4 feet of visibility? You know, it just quadrupled the visibility, and those fish that are typically comfortable in that stained water, now they're kind of skittish because they got a lot more visibility. You know, bass are, they're ambush predatory fish, right? They like the element of surprise. So they like to be able to sneak up on their prey, not give a lot of energy or burn a lot of energy, and they are ambush predators. So if you're in a fishery that typically has 1 foot of visibility, now all of a sudden you have 4 feet of visibility, these techniques will apply to you too. Now, are you fishing a clear water reservoir that often has 15 to 20 feet of visibility or something like that, where you have ultra clear water? Those fish that are used to that typical clear water year-round are going to be a lot less skittish and a lot more comfortable with that clear water environment. So if you're an angler that gets intimidated by clear water, this video is for you. Now again, it doesn't matter if you're a stained water fishery going clear. You know, out here, Chickamauga, wintertime, less boat traffic, you know, pre-rain, you start getting a lot of that sediment settling down in the water column, and you go clearer. The water gets clearer. As it gets colder, everything slows down. Good filtration system, current, you get clear water. Typically clearer than other times of the year, especially early spring when all the rain comes. You get all of your backwaters and your tributaries, all that feeding the water system muddies up the water. And we'll do a video later on in the year for that, how to catch them in muddy water. But today's video, clear water. You don't have to be overwhelmed or intimidated by clear water. My number 1 tip, stay stealthy. It is more and more important on these clear fisheries or these clearer fisheries that you stay quiet. You know, don't slam your trolling motor. Don't be on the big motor right up on your spot. You gotta stay stealthy, because these fish can see. That is their domain. That is, you're playing on their court. So with these clear fisheries, I cannot emphasize enough to stay stealthy. Be quiet. Don't be jumping around on your deck of your boat, or shore fishermen, don't be throwing rocks or talking really loud on the phone. You know, silence your cell phone, all that sort of stuff, because you are in their court, right? You're in their environment. They know you are there. You want to do everything you can to put the odds in your favor to catch them. So stay stealthy. Number 2 tip, and I can't emphasize this the most, target the visibility line. And what I mean by that, depending on your fishery, that could be 2 feet, could be 10 feet, 15 feet, 25 feet. What I'm talking about, when you're looking down the shoreline, and I can't emphasize polarized glasses enough. When you're looking down the shoreline and you can see bottom in 12 feet, but there's a dark line, you know, 14 feet where you can't see bottom anymore, that is the area that you want to fish. You don't necessarily want to fish in 1 or 2 feet of water. You want to fish that visibility line where it goes from visible to you can't see bottom anymore. That is like a fence line. That is like a line where those fish are going to stay because they don't want to be up in shallow water, especially with high sun and clear water. They're going to stay on that line. So stay stealthy and look for that. I call it the visibility line, where it changes from visible to invisible, the depth, the bottom of the lake or fishery you're fishing. That is where those fish are going to hold. Now, number 3 tip, light line on finesse techniques and speed kills. If you're going to be throwing a drop shot or slowing down and throwing some kind of finesse bait, downsize and throw light line. Now, I'm going to get into some specific baits here as soon as I give you a couple more tips, but downsize if you're finesse fishing or slow fishing. You know, if you're typically throwing 10, 12, 14 pound fluorocarbon, drop down to 8, 6, or 4, depending on the visibility in your fishery. It totally affects the fish, and a lot of those fish in clear water, especially if they're not used to the clear water, become very, very line shy. Speed kills. If you're gonna be fishing these fisheries and you're going reaction, I can't emphasize enough, go fast. You don't wanna give these fish a lot of time to inspect your bait, right? They know what's up. If they have a ton of time to inspect your crankbait or your swim bait, you're not going to get as many bites as if you didn't give them those opportunities. So we talked about stay stealthy. We talked about the invisible line or visible line, line and speed. Can't emphasize enough, long casts. Again, some of these fisheries, you know, those fish can see a long ways, possibly longer than or farther than you can actually cast. So make sure you stay stealthy and make long casts. Now, the key areas that you want to target kind of goes hand in hand with that that invisible line, that depth line where it goes invisible or you can't see it anymore. Shade is your friend. So if there's docks or there's trees and or shade lines, something like that, those fish are going to be in that shade, in that dark area, looking out to the light, looking for bait, looking for things to eat. So if you find yourself on a clear water fishery that's clear year round, look for those areas with high sun that really congregate those fish under those shade lines. You know, it doesn't have to be 100 degrees outside for those fish to get in shade. You know, we talked about it in recent videos. Even in the dead of winter, those fish still will use the shade lines as ambush points. So we talked about shade is your friend. Another thing is wind is your friend. Anything that kind of breaks up that surface clarity, anything that breaks up that light penetration, that those fish, that helps those fish see, that stuff is gonna help you. So you guys that are afraid to fish on the weekends, if there's boat traffic, the more ripple on the water in clear water fisheries, the better for you as the angler. It doesn't let that light penetrate all the way down. It just like muddying up or murking up the water, those fish feel more secure. They feel more apt to eat, and they can't see as far. So stay stealthy. Target that depth change where you can no longer see bottom, that transition. That's where those fish are going to hold. Light line if you're finesse fishing, and speed it up if you're power fishing, throwing a swim bait, throwing a crankbait, something like that. You know, if you're throwing a swim bait that is more realistic, that you can still go slow because, you know, that's more realistic. But if you're throwing something like, something that's chartreuse and blue, speed it up. I'm going to get into these baits in just a second because I do have a total use for the chartreuse and blue, especially for smallmouth. But so speed it up for reaction. Make those long casts. The wind and shade is your friend, and go natural. If you're finesse fishing, go with your green pumpkins. Go with your shad color baits. Don't go bright. You don't need to. Those fish can see a long ways, and you want to go natural, especially with the finesse stuff. Now, as far as baits, I typically, in these conditions, I typically go finesse, like a drop shot. You know, I'll throw a little 3.5 inch drop shot worm. Again, I'll go natural, some kind of green pumpkin or shad color. But typically, I start off with reaction. And we've preached about it for years, but cranking is a phenomenal way to catch fish, especially in wintertime, but even in clear water. So some of my favorites, I just showed you these guys right here, and you'll see these colors, very natural, very crawdad crayfish looking. This is the Spro rock crawler. Again, speed kills, so speed it up. Don't just sit there and fish this on a 5-to-1 gear ratio reel. You're gonna want a burner, a 7-to-1, 7-3-to-1, something like that, and you're gonna burn, pause, burn, pause. You know, just like we've taught with our crankbait, that tactical DD crankbait, same thing. So a crankbait is phenomenal at this time of the year, but I go natural, right? Go with those ghost minnow colors, go with those craw patterns. You know, even though they have a lot of visibility, that bait is moving quickly, it's deflecting. These baits are key. One exception, you guys already saw me hold up the chartreuse and blue Kitech. Smallmouth. If you are on a smallmouth fishery, the Great Lakes, you know, 30+ foot of visibility, doesn't matter where you are, but if you're targeting smallmouth, chartreuse and blue is another key color. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that they can see it for so, you know, they're visual sight hunters and they can see it for so long, but chartreuse and blue, my personal smallmouth, 7-pound smallmouth came on that setup right there in crystal clear water. So, smallmouth fishermen, you don't have to necessarily stay natural. Try chartreuse and blue. So we talked about the crankbait. Now let's talk about the swim bait. Obviously, there's different size swim baits. You can go 10. You know, if you're a big bait fisherman and you want to throw an 8 or 10-inch bait, more power to you. Go natural. Go with your trout patterns. Go with your herring patterns or you know, shad patterns, stuff like that. But Kitechs, I typically go with electric shad or some kind of pro blue, red pearl, something like that. Something that's a natural fishy color. And then smallmouth, again, chartreuse and blue, they eat that up. You can downsize whatever you're comfortable with. One of my buddies, his favorite bait to catch giant smallmouth is gonna be this guy right here. This is actually the Megabass Okashira head. And what's special about that head itself, you know, you can put your favorite 2.5 to 3-inch swim bait on it. This is actually the Kitech Easy Shiner, but what's important, this head right here, it's got, hopefully you guys can see that, it's got this blade right here is longer than that blade, and not only does it add vibration in the water, but watching a lot of underwater footage, it also puts off a unique sound, and the smallmouth, spotted bass, largemouth eat that up. You know, Matt's had great days out here on Chick, throwing this guy with a little 2.8 for big largemouth. So if you guys are fishing a fishery that has a ton of visibility and you're overwhelmed, these baits right here, I have a ton of confidence and a ton of success in. So little Okashira head by Megabass. You know, if you don't want something like that, you can go with a little there it is right here, little guppy head, you know, something that's no vibration, no flash, just real natural. You could fish this on the bottom, you could fish it real slowly if you want, or you could fish it mid-column, speed it up. But if you don't want that vibration, that little guy right there is money. And then bigger swim baits, obviously, bigger bites. One other swim bait that I highly recommend, and you guys know it, especially up north in the Great Lakes area, is going to be some kind of dark sleeper. I typically go with the natural colors on these because I'm slow fishing them. So I'll go with a haze or a Wakasaki or a Donko color, something like that. Again, just like every video, I will link my favorite baits and colors down below in the video description. But you guys, these guys right here are a must. big bass. I mean, not my personal best, but my biggest largemouth on the dark sleeper is just under 9 pounds. So big ones eat it too. You finesse fishermen, if you don't want to throw it on a bait caster, you can go with something like that and throw it on a spinning rod. But the mega bass, this is the dark sleeper, just has that real bait fish profile. So fish it on your shade lines, fish it on that depth contour line, and you can just slowly fish this along and you guys will have success. You guys, don't be overwhelmed with clear water. Again, if you're typically on a stained fishery and your water right now is clearing up because it's colder, you got your springs coming in, you don't have a lot of rain muddying up, coming in and muddying up the water, those fish are gonna be finicky, especially up shallow. They like that dark. Fish in the evenings, fish in low light conditions early in the morning, even night fish if you need to, but don't be afraid of clear water, you guys, because some amazing fisheries have amazing visibility. You just have to downsize, slow down, speed up with the right baits, and you guys will catch them. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down below in the comments section. As always, we will try to get to those as soon as possible. We appreciate you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you soon.